Growing up in Boulder, I always thought family meant having your back when the ground gave way beneath you. That's what mountains teach you. Sometimes the earth shifts, but you hold steady for the people you love. That's why when Jessica called about the family ski weekend in Vail, her voice bubbling with that familiar excitement that made everything sound like the best idea in the world, I almost said yes immediately. Maya, it'll be perfect. Tyler's finally gotten good enough to hit the intermediate slopes with Lily. Mom and Dad are paying for the lodge. All you have to do is show up. What they didn't know was that, just showing up to a mountain resort meant facing the one thing that had kept me grounded for the past 12 years literally. Heights. Not just a casual discomfort, but a full-blown phobia that made me dizzy looking at second-story balconies. The kind that had me designing single-story buildings exclusively, despite having an architecture degree from CU Boulder that could have taken me anywhere. I should have seen the signs when Jessica mentioned that Tyler, finally, deserved a real ski trip, or when Mom casually added that I could just stay in the lodge if the slopes made me nervous. But there was Lily, my 16-year-old snowboarding prodigy, practically vibrating with excitement about finally getting to board the back bowls she'd been dreaming about since she was 12. "Mom, please," she'd said, bouncing on her toes in our kitchen that overlooked the Flatirons. "I've been training all season, and Tyler's actually been nice lately. He's been asking me for tips on his form." That should have been my first red flag. Tyler, nice. Tyler, my sister's golden boy who'd spent most family gatherings making snide comments about Lily being too intense about her boarding, had suddenly developed an interest in her expertise. But I wanted to believe that maybe, finally, the family was ready to see what I'd always seen in my daughter, not the quiet, serious kid who reminded them too much of me, but the fierce, talented young woman who'd earned a spot on her high school's varsity snowboard team as a sophomore. The panic attack hit me that Thursday night, 2 days before we were supposed to leave. I was reviewing blueprints for a client's mountain cabin, ironic, considering when my chest tightened and my hands started shaking. The elevation markers on the architectural survey suddenly looked like a death sentence. Lily found me sitting on the kitchen floor, breathing into a paper bag. "You don't have to go," she said quietly, settling down beside me. "I can just go with Aunt Jess and them." That's when I made the decision that would change everything. "No," I said, still catching my breath. "You're not going without me." Not because I didn't trust Jessica or my parents to keep Lily safe, but because I'd spent my entire childhood being told I was too sensitive about my fear of heights, too dramatic when I'd beg not to go on chairlifts or hiking trails that made me dizzy. I wasn't going to let my daughter face a mountain without someone who understood that fear doesn't make you weak, it just makes you human. The drive up I-70 to Vail was supposed to be therapeutic. Windows down, music loud, Lily explaining the difference between a frontside 360 and a backside 180 while I focused on the road instead of the drop-offs on either side. We were meeting the family at the resort, and for once I felt like maybe I was overthinking things. "Mom," Lily said as we passed through the Eisenhower Tunnel, "you know you don't actually have to get on the lifts, right? You can just hang out at the lodge, work on your laptop." I glanced at her in the rearview mirror. "Is that what you want?" She paused. "I want you to not be miserable. But also," she trailed off, "but also. Tyler's been weird lately. Like, asking too many questions about my sponsorship meeting next month, and about your firm." My architecture firm had been doing well better than well, actually. The sustainable mountain home designs I developed had caught attention from some major developers. Lily knew bits and pieces, but I'd kept the full scope of my success quiet. In my family, success had always been Jessica's territory. "What kind of questions?" "Just, how much money architects make, whether you have famous clients, stuff like that," she shrugged. "Aunt Jess probably put him up to it." We reached the resort as the sun was setting behind the peaks, painting everything gold and purple. The lodge was exactly what I'd expected, all exposed timber and floor to ceiling windows showcasing views that made my stomach flip. Jessica bounced out to greet us, her blonde hair perfect despite allegedly spending the day on the slopes. "Maya, finally, we already got Lily's lift ticket. She's going to love the back bowls tomorrow." She hugged me, then whispered, "And don't worry, I told the kids to be extra careful. No showing off." My parents appeared next, Dad carrying his vintage ski boots like trophies. "There's our cautious daughter," he said, not unkindly but not kindly either. Ready to brave the bunny hills? I forced a smile. We'll see how it goes. Tyler emerged from the lodge, 16 now and nearly as tall as his mother, with that easy confidence that came from never being told he was too much of anything. Hey, Aunt Maya, Lily, you ready to see how the real slopes work? Lily raised an eyebrow. Real slopes. I mean the mountain stuff, not just the terrain park. He grinned, but something about it felt performative. I've been practicing, might actually keep up with you now. That night at dinner, the conversation kept drifting to my work. How business was going, whether I had any big projects coming up, if the sustainable design trend was as profitable as Jessica had read online. I answered vaguely, unused to being the center of family attention. Usually, these dinners revolved around Tyler's football stats or Jessica's latest MLM venture. You know, Mom said over dessert, it's so nice that you're finally doing well enough to afford trips like this. She said it like she was proud, but there was something else underneath, like she was taking inventory. Mom, I've been doing fine for years. Oh, we know, honey, we just mean well enough to not worry about money anymore. Dad nodded. It's good to see you relaxed. I wasn't relaxed. I was confused. Since when did my family care about my financial stress? And when had they gotten the impression that I'd ever struggled? My firm had been profitable since year 2. I'd been quietly successful for nearly a decade. Later, unpacking in my room, I heard Jessica on the phone in the hallway. Definitely making more than she lets on. Did you see her car? That's not architect money, that's architect with rich clients' money. A pause. Maybe she'll finally start helping out more. You know, Mom and Dad are struggling with the mortgage. I sat on the edge of the bed, pieces clicking together, the sudden interest in my work, the comments about money. The way Tyler had been asking Lily about my clients. This wasn't a family ski trip. This was reconnaissance. The next morning, I watched from the lodge deck as Lily and Tyler took their first run together. She was poetry in motion, carving down the mountain like she'd been born to it. Tyler was trying his best. They disappeared behind a cluster of trees, and I tried to focus on my coffee instead of the way the deck seemed to sway in the wind 30 feet above the base lodge. My phone buzzed. A text from Lily. Heading to the back bowls with Tyler. He says he knows a shortcut. Something cold settled in my stomach that had nothing to do with altitude. The call came at 11:47 a.m. Ms. Chen? The voice was official, careful. This is Vale Medical Center. Your daughter Lily has been brought in with a head injury. The world tilted. What kind of head injury? She's conscious and stable, but she has a concussion. There was an incident on the mountain. I was already grabbing my keys, my hands shaking. What kind of incident? It appears she fell from a chairlift, about 15 feet. She's asking for you. I made it to the hospital in 12 minutes, a drive that should have taken 20. Lily was sitting up in the emergency room bed, a bandage wrapped around her head, looking small and pale under the fluorescent lights. When she saw me, her face crumpled. Mom. Hey, baby. I touched her face gently, checking her pupils like I'd seen doctors do on TV. How do you feel? Like my brain is full of cotton balls, and dizzy, she winced. Really dizzy. The doctor said you fell from a chairlift? Her expression changed, became guarded. Yeah, I lost my balance. Where's Tyler? Where's your aunt and grandparents? They went back to the lodge to get my stuff. She wouldn't meet my eyes. They said they'd come back later. They left you here alone? My voice came out sharper than I intended. The nurse said it was okay, that you were coming. She pulled at the hospital blanket. Mom, don't be mad at them. It was an accident. What kind of accident, Lily? She was quiet for a long moment. Then, we were on the lift to the back bowls. Tyler, joking around, trying to rock the chair. I told him to stop because it was making me nervous, and he said I was being dramatic. Like you, she paused. Then he said maybe if I fell, you'd finally have to come up the mountain to get me. My blood turned to ice. And then he grabbed my board and tilted it, said he was just messing around, but I lost my grip and... She gestured weakly at her bandaged head. The lift operator said it was the second highest fall he'd seen this season. Where was everyone when this happened? Aunt Jess was on the lift behind us with Ben. Grandma and Grandpa were at the bottom, waiting. She looked up at me finally. They all saw me fall, Mom. Tyler was screaming my name. But when the ski patrol got there, Tyler said I just slipped, that I wasn't holding on properly. And you didn't correct him. I was so confused. My head hurt so bad, and everyone was already talking about how I should have been more careful, how intermediate slopes aren't for everyone. Her voice got smaller. I thought maybe I did just slip. The doctor returned with test results. moderate concussion, some swelling but no fracture. She'll need to be monitored for the next 48 hours. No physical activity for at least 2 weeks. Someone will need to wake her every few hours tonight to check her responses. After he left, I called Jessica. She answered on the first ring, voice bright and unconcerned. "Oh good, you made it. How's our little patient?" "She has a concussion, Jess. Where are you?" "Getting some lunch before we head back. Tyler feels terrible, of course. He's been so worried." I could hear Tyler in the background, talking animatedly about something. He didn't sound worried. "I need to talk to all of you." "Of course, we'll swing by around 3. The doctor said she's fine, right? She fell 15 feet and has a brain injury. But she's okay now, right? Kids bounce back so fast." Jessica's tone was already moving on. "Oh, and Maya, do you think you could cover Tyler's lift ticket for tomorrow? He's been so looking forward to trying the double blacks, and with all this hospital stuff, we're a little tight." I hung up without answering. At 3:30, they finally showed up. My parents bustled in with forced cheer, Tyler trailing behind looking appropriately sheepish. Jessica carried a gift shop teddy bear. "There's our brave girl," Mom cooed, like Lily had gotten a scraped knee instead of a traumatic brain injury. Tyler approached the bed carefully. "Hey Lily, I'm really sorry about what happened." He glanced at me. "It was totally an accident." "What exactly happened?" I asked, keeping my voice level. "I was just, being silly on the lift, trying to make her laugh. I didn't think she'd actually fall." He shrugged. "I guess she wasn't holding on tight enough." "Lily says you grabbed her snowboard." "I might have touched it." But just like playfully, she was being all nervous about the height and I thought if I distracted her. He trailed off, realizing how that sounded. Dad stepped in. "Maya, accidents happen. That's why they're called accidents." "She could have died." "But she didn't," Jessica said firmly. "She's fine. Kids fall all the time skiing. That's how they learn." I looked at each of them, my parents nodding along, Jessica checking her phone, Tyler fidgeting with his lift pass. None of them seemed to grasp the severity of what had happened, or they were choosing not to. "I want to see the incident report," I said. "What incident report?" Jessica laughed. "Maya, you're making this sound like a crime scene." That's when I knew they hadn't filed a report. Hadn't spoken to ski patrol beyond the immediate rescue. Hadn't even asked the lift operator what he'd witnessed. They'd swept it under the rug like it was nothing, like Lily was nothing. "We're leaving," I announced. "Lily and I are going home." "Don't be ridiculous," Mom said. "The doctor said she just needs rest. She can rest here just as well as Denver." "In a hotel room, with a concussion, while you all go skiing." "We take turns staying with her," Dad offered weakly. "Like you took turns making sure she was okay yesterday?" The room went quiet. Tyler shifted uncomfortably. Jessica's jaw tightened. "Maya," she said carefully, "I think you're letting your anxiety make this bigger than it is." My anxiety. There it was. The same dismissal I'd heard my entire childhood, every time I'd expressed fear or concern or basic self-preservation. I was being too sensitive, too anxious, too much. "We're done here," I said, helping Lily sit up slowly. "Come on, baby, we're going home." The drive down the mountain was the longest 2 hours of my life, not because of the winding roads or the drop-offs that made my hands sweat, but because Lily kept apologizing. "I'm sorry I ruined the trip, Mom." "You didn't ruin anything." I should have held on tighter. Tyler was right, I was being nervous about the height. I pulled over at a scenic overlook, my hands shaking as I put the car in park. The view stretched for miles, peaks and valleys that should have been beautiful but just looked like obstacles to me. "Lily, look at me." She turned, her face still pale under the bandage. "Being nervous about heights isn't a character flaw. Being pushed off a chairlift isn't your fault. And falling 15 feet isn't something you just walk off. But Aunt Jess said Aunt Jess is wrong, and I should have protected you from this." I took a deep breath. "I'm calling my lawyer when we get home." Her eyes widened. "Mom, no, it was an accident." "Was it?" Because I'm starting to think this whole trip was planned. The questions about my work, the comments about money, Tyler suddenly wanting to ski with you. I shook my head. "I think they wanted something from me, and when they didn't get it, Tyler took it out on you." "You really think Tyler would hurt me on purpose?" "I think Tyler is 16 and doesn't understand consequences, and I think the adults in that family taught him that your feelings don't matter as much as his fun." We sat in silence for a moment, watching clouds move across the peaks. Then Lily said quietly, "Are you really going to sue them?" "I'm going to make sure this never happens to anyone else's kid." That night, while Lily slept, I checked on her every hour like the doctor ordered. I researched everything. Chairlift safety regulations, resort liability policies, the legal definition of reckless endangerment. By 3 a.m., I had a timeline, witness contact information from the resort, and a very clear picture of what had actually happened. The lift operator had filed his own incident report. According to his statement, he'd watched Tyler aggressively manipulate the passenger's equipment and had been preparing to stop the lift when Lily fell. He'd immediately radioed for ski patrol and medical assistance. The family had left the scene before he could get their contact information. They'd fled, left Lily with strangers, and disappeared into the mountain. Monday morning, I called the one person I knew who specialized in recreational injury law. Sarah Kim had been my study partner in law school before I switched to architecture. She listened to the whole story without interrupting. "Maya," she said when I finished, "this isn't just about the fall. This is about a minor being endangered by family members who then abandoned her at a medical scene. We're talking criminal charges. I don't want to destroy anyone's life. They didn't seem worried about destroying Lily's when they left her alone on a mountain with a head injury." The phone calls from my family started that afternoon. First Jessica, confused and hurt. "Maya, what's this about lawyers? Can't we just talk this through?" Then my parents, taking turns, Mom crying about family loyalty. Dad demanding I think about what this would do to Tyler's future. Mark came last, the one call I'd been dreading. "Sis, come on. You're really going to put a kid through court over a ski accident? He's not a kid when he's endangering my daughter. He's 16, old enough to understand that actions have consequences. You're going to ruin his entire life over this. Like you almost ruined Lily's?" By Wednesday, the resort had released the security footage to our attorney. Clear as day, Tyler grabbing Lily's board, her obvious distress, the intentional motion that sent her tumbling. Even clearer, the family gathering at the bottom of the lift, having an animated discussion, then walking away while Lily was still being loaded into the ski patrol sled. The criminal charges came first. Reckless endangerment for Tyler, child abandonment for Jessica and my parents. The civil suit came second against the resort for their safety protocols and against my family for medical expenses and emotional trauma. But the part that really broke them wasn't the legal consequences. It was what came after. Tyler lost his position on his high school ski team. The criminal charge meant no college skiing scholarships, no junior racing circuit, no mountain sponsorships he'd been chasing. His entire identity, built around being the athletic golden boy, crumbled. Jessica's lifestyle influencer brand, built around family adventures and raising fearless kids, became a liability overnight. Sponsors pulled out. Followers left. The family ski trips that had been her content goldmine became legal evidence of negligent supervision. My parents, who'd been planning to downsize to a retirement community in the mountains, found that their involvement in the case had flagged them as potential liabilities in any facility with recreational activities. But I wasn't done. I'd been quietly sending money to my parents for years' help with their mortgage, Tyler's ski equipment, Jessica's various business ventures that never quite took off. Small amounts, $500 here, $1,000 there, money they'd gotten used to receiving but never acknowledged as gifts. I stopped. All of it. The frantic calls started 2 months later when their financial situation became clear. "Maya, honey, we're a little behind on the house payment this month." "Maya, Tyler needs new gear for his community college team tryouts, and we're just a bit tight." "Maya, Jessica's car payment bounced, and she wondered if you could." I listened to each voicemail, deleted them, and never called back. 6 months later, Lily was fully healed and back on her board, training for state championships. I'd finally started therapy for my height phobia, not because I wanted to conquer mountains, but because I was tired of fear making my decisions for me. We were having breakfast on our back deck, the mountains visible in the distance but not threatening anymore, when Lily's phone buzzed with a text. "It's from Tyler," she said, showing me the screen. "He wants to apologize, says he's been in therapy and understands now how dangerous what he did was. How do you feel about that?" She considered it. I'm glad he's getting help, but I don't need to forgive him to move on." Good. I refilled my coffee, watching her read through the rest of the message. "Anything else? He says the family really misses us, that they hope we can work things out." She looked up at me. "Do you miss them?" I thought about it honestly. I miss the family I thought we were, but I don't miss walking on eggshells or pretending your safety doesn't matter. "So we're really done with them?" unless they can prove they've changed. Really changed, not just apologized because they're facing consequences. Lily nodded and put her phone away without responding to Tyler's text. Good, I like our life better without people who think being afraid makes you weak. Being afraid doesn't make you weak, baby, but letting fear stop you from protecting the people you love, that's different. She smiled. Is that why you got on the chairlift last week during my practice session? I laughed, remembering the terror and pride of finally riding to the mid-mountain lodge to watch her train. That's exactly why. Turns out maternal instinct is stronger than phobias. So what now? Now we live our life. The one where your feelings matter, where your safety comes first, and where you never have to choose between family loyalty and self-respect. The mountains still made me nervous, but they didn't control me anymore. Neither did the voices that had spent years telling me I was too sensitive, too fearful, too much. I'd found my footing finally, and this time I wasn't letting anyone push me off the edge. Sometimes the ground does give way beneath you. But sometimes, when you fall, you learn you were strong enough to climb back up all along.